What's up, everybody? Josh Armijo here. I hope everybody's doing good and well and stuff. I'm here today to do the answers to my Q&A video. First of all, I would like to thank everybody who participated in the Q&A video. I really appreciate it. Secondly, originally I was going to do the Q&A where I answered every single question in one video, but the loading process was far too long. The video was far too long, so I decided I'm going to split it in half, with the first half being today and then the second half tomorrow, and then from then on there it's back to the review business as usual. So, and also there were some repeat questions, so if I don't answer your question, it's because someone asked it first. So with that said, once again, thanks to everybody who participated, and let's get this underway. First question comes from Weekly Metal Reviews. They ask, what band has put on the greatest live performances you have ever seen? Well, any live experience could end up being the best live experience you've ever had. It could just be one particular moment in an instance. If it could be something maybe more commercial or something lesser known, anything could be great. The one concert experience that I will never forget was back in I want to say December of 2012. I want to say this was when Exhumed was doing their tour with Napalm Death and Municipal Waste. They were having some van issues and they had to do a couple of off dates. So some of my good buddies in the local SA scene decided to help Exhumed play a show at the Korova basement. And as great as the local bands were, there was just something about Exhumed's set that felt very real. It felt like an underground metal show. It didn't feel like anything was holding it back. It was straight up raw and primal. Exhumed at their absolute best craft, playing a lot of the old school classics, some of the new stuff. But just something about that show felt amazing. Just the mosh pits, the atmosphere, the fact that it was just in a confined kind of space. That really made that show very special, and that's an experience I'll never ever forget. Even seeing Morbosidad for the first time, seeing all those earlier this past February, seeing a lot of fists flying, a lot of emotion, just a lot of craziness. I've never seen anything like that. That was just something amazing. Even if war metal isn't your kind of thing, the live experience is definitely something you should invest into. But yeah, those are some of the best live performances of my recent memory. So thanks for your question. Jack Edge asks, top 5 current UK bands and why? Pretty difficult question, but as far as what I think, this is just off of the top of my head, I would have to say Motorhead, mainly for them chugging along at the pace that they have through all the stuff with Lemmy and just making consistent good music. The last album that they put out is probably one of the best Motorhead albums that they've put out in years. Iron Maiden, simply for the fact that they've created a legacy. They can still bring it live, and they just are a force to be reckoned with. Bolt Thrower. Bolt Thrower are just continuously amazing. I know they haven't put out an album in a long time, but still, they are a hard-working band, continuously making live music appearances, and just for being great death metal. Cruciamentum, I think they're one of the best bands to come out of the UK right now. They're really incredible. I know they're not really doing the live stuff much, but as far as recorded material goes, I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to offer in the future. And as far as right now, Grave Miasma. Grave Miasma are amazing. Their debut last year was one of the absolute best death metal albums to come out in recent memory. And they've got the world in their hands right now, and more great things are soon to come from them. So that's the best I can think of, man. So thanks for your question. Possessed asks, how long have you been collecting CDs? What started it, and what CD was it? I want to say I've been buying CDs actively ever since my middle school days. Ever since the beginning of my middle school days is when I first was getting into CDs and all that kind of stuff. Um, I don't remember what the first CD I bought specifically was, but I want to say it It was back when I was younger. I was getting into the older Cartoon Network kind of stuff, like Space Ghost Coast to Coast and Cartoon Planet. I want to say they came out with a CD called Space Ghost Musical Barbecue, which is basically a whole compilation of songs from that TV show. And that was one of the first CDs I remember ever getting. It was just absolutely awesome. And then from then on there began my interests in stuff like rock, pop, hip hop, a lot of other different things. But that's one of the first CDs that I can remember. Um, yeah, it's been a long time, and I still do buy CDs to this very day. It's my preferred format of choice. I mean, I love vinyl and tape and stuff, but CDs are where it's at for me. So thanks for your question. Evergreen Recordings asks, what type of albums do you consider to have good or great replay value? Ooh, very good question. I want to take a trip back to last year and say the debut album from Lantern entitled Below. Out of all of the albums I listened to last year, that album had a certain replayability to it because it was so unique for being a finished death metal release. Just from the musical structuring to the vocals to the overall atmosphere, it was just something unheard of at the time. And the more I listen to Below, the fresher it gets. It's a really, really incredible album, and Lantern are really, really good. I'm optimistic that the next album that they put out will have the same equal kind of replay value, and they're a band that need to be heard. Other albums that I listen to a lot, and here's something different, would probably be something like maybe, I want to say maybe Terra by Absu. I really enjoy listening to that. Scream Bloody Gore by Death. The first Death album is always one of the most replayed ones for me. It gets better and better every time I listen to it. Syzygial Miscreancy by Hellwitch. That's one of my favorite technical death style albums of all time. Really, really amazing album. But yeah, those are some of my replayable albums. Thanks for your question. Stuart Cassette asks, what are my thoughts on the band Shining? Swedish Shining. I want to assume you're talking about the one with Niklas Kvarforth. They're alright. I really don't know much of their later material, but maybe their older material, I can say they have some pretty good, decent stuff. I don't know. I swear sometimes nowadays that band is more interested in style than substance, and shock value without any real sort of substance for it. I mean, I like a good band to have controversial stuff in their music and atmosphere, but sometimes I think they just do it to be overly schlocky, and it's really nothing I'm interested in at this moment. And can you do Black Death style vocals? Nah, I'm not a vocalist. I'm just a fan. If I had those kind of vocal chops, I'd probably be in a band or something, but not really my thing. But thanks for your questions. Eric Bauer asks, what are your favorite distros for cassettes and my thoughts on the re-emergence of cassettes? I am all for it. I am all for the cassette revival. Like I said previously, CDs are my favorite format of music, but vinyl and something about cassette tapes has a very old school kind of quality to it. I mean, as long as you take good care of it and you don't leave them misplaced or mishandled anywhere, you can listen to cassettes for a good period of time. Yeah, I love it. And as far as distros or anywhere that sells cassettes, I would have to say stuff like maybe Iron Bonehead. They've been doing really awesome with cassette tapes. Graceless Recordings, Caligari Records, just a really, really good lineup of places that continue the cassette tape revival, and I think it's really, really amazing. Oh, and Obscure Vanity. Shout out to my friend Justin from Father Be Fouled for doing Obscure Vanity and helping make that label something very special. Yeah, thanks for your questions. Counterbeat 74, my good buddy Pat Ken asks, top 5 favorite albums. That's something that always fluctuates with me. I never really have a top albums of all time list set in stone. But if I had to think of any albums that I would consider maybe the greatest of all time, albums like, let's say, maybe uh, Slaughter, Strapato, Nocturnus, The Key, Hell Awaits by Slayer, Legion by Deicide, Tomb of the Mutilated by Cannibal Corpse. Um, yeah, there's way more to it than that, but it's not really at the top of my head right now. So maybe when the time is right, I can talk about more of my all-time favorite albums. But yeah, that's where I'll leave the question at. So thanks for your question, Pat Ken. Ben Wonder asks, which metal sites blogs do you check regularly? I read a lot of them. Gunshy Assassin, mainly for the fact that Chris Harris is a smartass and I like his approach. Cult Nation, No Clean Singing, American Aftermath, Last Rites, Operation Grindcore. Trying to think of some other blogs. Guttural Death is a good one. I don't know if that blog is still active, but I remember they put some really good stuff up on there. Let's see. Trying to think of what other good metal blogs would be out there. Yeah, those are just some of the ones coming to mind. But I would rather much support the old school style blogs as opposed to some of the more commercialized ones that look out for publicity instead of delivering content that's suitable for bands. So that's just what I think. Thanks for your question. Vinyl Flesh asks, Cannibal Corpse or Suffocation? Cannibal Corpse, bar none. Favorite band ever. Suffocation are great too, but Cannibal Corpse is the band that got me into metal, and I owe a lot to them. So thank you for your question. Travis Spalding asks, favorite industrial albums? Street Cleaner by Godflesh. That is a mandatory classic. Never gets old at all. Demanufacture by Fear Factory. Back when Fear Factory were in their prime. Really, really amazing album. That album sends a lot of chills up my spine. And Psalm 69 by Ministry. Really, really amazing album. Back when Ministry were really at the top of their game and really, really had a take no prisoners approach to their sound. Really, really great album. And thoughts of when I'll do a classic video series. Basically review older albums. It's an issue of timing. I get a lot of promos and free music pretty much on a weekly, routinely basis, and I'm always on top of what's being released right now. Mainly this channel is sticking to reviews for current and up-to-date albums, but if I want to do a review on a classic album, it'll just have to be an issue of timing. If I can get to it, I'll get to it. If not, I really have to stay focused on what's on the current state of metal right now. I mean, I did the Demolic box set review, but Demolic's Nispeth is a classic album. That's another album on my all-time list. I mean, that's really the most recent classic review I did, but all I can really tell you is I'll get to it if I get to it, and if not, that's up to me. So, thanks for your understanding and thanks for your questions. Strongboys19 asks, favorite album of all time? Tomb of the Mutilated by Cannibal Corpse. That was the first introduction to extreme music for me, and everything about that album just really, really was fantastic. I absolutely love that album. And favorite album artwork? The next three Cannibal Corpse albums, not the next three, but Butchered at Birth, Tomb of the Mutilated, I really love those album covers. Trying to think here. Yeah, pretty much anything that's done by Chris Moyen or some of the Iron Maiden album covers are really awesome, like Peace of Mind, Killers, Power Slave, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I really enjoyed those covers. The first two Napalm Death records, I really enjoyed those album cover arts. any Dan Seagrave or John Zig artwork. Pretty much they deliver the goods all the time. That's what I can really think of. So thanks for your questions. J.I. Vargas asks, opinion on melodic death metal today. I'm not really opposed to it, but at the same time, it's not anything I'm really in any hurry to be listening to. I mean, I like some older melodic death metal stuff, but nowadays, it's just something that's going to have to catch my ear. I really have to be in the right mind frame and mood for to listen to it. I mean, when it comes to death metal, I love old school death metal, brutal death metal, and pretty much a lot of death variations like Black Death, Thrash Death, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to Melo-death, it has to be it. I'm very picky about that nowadays, so can't really help that. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. But if you love that, go for it. That's your right. So thanks for your question. Christopher Kimmel asks, "Are you a fan of Aborted?" Absolutely. I am a huge, huge fan of Aborted. I love their older material, probably a lot more than their current output. Gormageddon is my absolute favorite album of theirs. I love that album. And what they've come out with lately, I really, really dig. I liked Global Flatline. I also really enjoy their newest album, the Necrotic Manifesto. That recently came out, and that's a really, really awesome listen. So, yeah, Aborted are very high up in my book, and they know exactly what they're doing. So thanks for your question. Damage Done asks, top 5 and favorite Melo-death albums and bands. Um, I'm going to combine your question and basically say favorite albums and bands. I'm going to merge them together because if I had to think of any old Melo-death albums, I would definitely have to think of Predator's Portrait by Soilwork, Lunar Strain by In Flames, The Gallery by Dark Tranquillity, Edge of Sanity, Crimson, because pretty much anything that that Dan Swano was involved with is really good. And Carcass's Heartwork, probably one of my favorite Carcass releases of the current of that current Melo-death style. And an honorable mention to The Red in the Sky Is Ours by At the Gates. I'm really not a fan of At the Gates, but I am a fan of that album in particular. So just my 2 cents. So thanks for your question. Opeth 747 asks, what are your thoughts on the band Acid Witch? Good stuff. I mean, I really need to listen to more of this band's output. I really haven't listened to a full album of theirs all the way through, but I've heard some selected songs through various friends of mine. And I think they really, really sound awesome. And definitely a band I'll be listening to more often than not. Favorite metal label? Also asked by Opeth 747. Far too many to list, but as far as consistency goes, to me, I would have to say Dark Descent Records, always on top of their game. Even the sub-label they got going on Unspeakable Acts is on top of their game. I'm also liking Profound Lore Records, Nuclear War Now Productions. New Standard Elite is probably one of the best new brutal death metal labels going right now. They've always got something consistent going on there. I'm always big on Relapse Records. Black Market Activities. I don't know if that label is still continuing on with stuff, but I really like what that label has going on for them. Always big on Peaceville and the old school stuff that they have there. Yeah, those are just some of my favorite labels that come to mind, so thanks for your questions. That's Not Metal asks, what albums got you into brutal death metal? I want to say one of the very first. Now, mind you, I was still a newbie learning about death metal and all that stuff at the time, but one of the first that I really heard that really freaked me out was the second Pathology album, Incisions of Perverse Debauchery. Really, really scary sounding album. It's still my personal favorite album of theirs to this very day. Just very evil, very ugly, and very twisted sounding stuff, and that's definitely the era of Pathology that I miss a lot. I also want to say Cranial Impalement by Disgorge, Sheila Gutted by Disgorge, the first 2 Insidious Decrepancy albums, shit, grotesque impalement by dying fetus. I don't know if I want to call them just straight up brutal death metal, but at the time that could be considered a brutal death metal classic to me or to other people. But yeah, those are just some titles that first exposed me to the genre, and I still like a lot of it to this very day. So, thanks for your question, George. I appreciate it. James Wardo asks, "You have a vast musical knowledge and a deep passion for metal." Thanks, man. Do you play in any bands, or did you in the past? Nah, I've never played in any band. I've never been in a band. I've never been involved with any instrumentation or anything like that. But I have been involved with going to a ton of shows, being close to a lot of the local bands, helping out a lot of the local bands, and just getting the ideas of how music works. I mean, pretty much any show you go to could be a learning experience, and getting to know how things work and how everything is just a really amazing learning experience. So yeah, so that's really all I can really tell you. So thanks for your question. Hamish Observes asks, "What extent do lyrics affect your opinion on an album?" Well, I don't know about you, but I love to know what a singer is talking about. I love to know what's on the vocalist's mind. Um, as far as lyrical content goes, it really doesn't matter to me what they talk about. If they talk about something serious, something gory, something schlocky, something in the bits of both worlds, it doesn't really matter to me. I really want to know how the vocalist feels, because lyrics, I would say lyrics are a pretty big deal to me. As long as bands put them in their lyric booklets, as long as I know what they're talking about, I'm very much I'm an open guy when it comes to lyrics. I really want to know what they're talking about. I really want to know what's getting to them, what's eating at them. Yeah, I wouldn't say they affect any sort of opinion on an album, because more than likely the music will decide for me whether the music and overall presentation of an album will probably be the judge of everything. But as far as the lyrics go, I would say they're equally as important, but it wouldn't really affect me regardless of what they talk about, because everybody's got something to say. It just depends on how the listener feels or decides to take it. So, hope that answered your question as best as it possibly could. So, thanks, Hamish. Uh, Catastrophe 57. This is the last question for the first half. Catastrophe 57 asks, "Thoughts on pitch shifted vocals?" I don't have a problem with them, so long as they're in gore grind related death grind stuff and war metal. Those are probably the two kind of styles that I would expect to best hear them really good. I mean, depending on the kind of grindcore that comes out, I think it would sound really awesome. I want to say the last Revenge record, Scum Collapse Eradication, had some really, really sick vocal distortions. I really, really enjoyed that. And of course, a lot of classic, older gore grind style stuff. Um, really, it depends. But if it's maybe something like Last Days of Humanity or Regurgitate, I think it works great. And your favorite unique unorthodox vocalists? There's quite a lot of them, but if I had to think of any that come to mind, I would have to say people like Vince Vaughn of Bluthaus Nord. I've always appreciated his vocal approach, whether it be harsh or just straight up different. I really like that. I also like Mike Hill of Tombs. He's got a great vocal style to him. The late Mac Daniels of Early Graves. I really, really loved his vocal approach and style, something very different for the genre. I also like Lenzig Leal of Cephalic Carnage. Really, really good vocal style and approach. And I want to say Seth from Septic Flesh has some pretty good vocals for him. Very deep, very bellowing, very different. That's what I like about his vocal style the most. So, yeah. This is the first half of the Q&A. Second half will come tomorrow. So thanks all for watching. Thanks for checking out my channel. And until the next time, Army Hell out.